Is DeMar DeRozan a Hall of Famer? Now, I've actually covered this topic on this channel before, but the other day I was just scrolling through YouTube and I come across this short from the Deep 3 podcast.
DeMar DeRozan.
No.
No.
Like, what are we talking about? No.
He's been good for a long time. I mean, listen, it's not...
Stop. The Hall of Fame is for the greatest players of all time.
Now, if you don't feel like DeMar DeRozan is a Hall of Famer, that's fine, but these guys were so disrespectful to DeMar, and I understand they're making content. It's not personal, right? They're trying to be, entertaining, right? And I'm not a avid watcher of these guys, so I can't tell you what they do and don't know. All I know is I see their shorts sometimes, and it seems like they're doing very well. So shout out to them, but I just felt like this would be a good opportunity to have this conversation again. Now, if you ask me, what do I believe DeMar DeRozan will make the Hall of Fame. But that's also me projecting DeMar DeRozan is going to play a couple more years, and by the end of his career, his point total will just be too high to not have him in the Hall of Fame. Well, let's break it down even more than that, because that part's simple. And when I use examples right now, I'm talking about modern NBA history, pretty much, 80s and above. I can't really speak to the 70s and 60s and the criteria for back then, right? But DeMar DeRozan is a 6-time All-Star. Can we find someone in modern NBA history to make 6 All-Star teams and not be in the NBA Hall of Fame? And there's gonna be some repeat names here as we go through the qualifiers to make the Hall of Fame, right? But 6-time All-Star not in the NBA Hall of Fame. You have Jermaine O'Neal, you have Sean Kemp, and you have Amari Stoudemire. Also, Kyle Lowry's up here as well, another interesting case. But Sean Kemp, Amari Stoudemire, to me, those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. Oh, and Blake Griffin as well, who I'm assuming will make it, but that's pretty interesting when you look at it. Blake Griffin, Sean Kemp, Amari Stoudemire, 3 guys often compared to each other. All 3 guys, I would say, better than DeMar DeRozan, but when we look at Amari Stoudemire in particular and Sean Kemp, I believe they are not in the Hall of Fame for off-the-court reasons, and you guys can do your due diligence and look up why that might be. With Sean Kemp, Amari Stoudemire, some, off-the-court troubles. Both guys deserving, if anything, Hall of Fame, right? Especially in the case of Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp did so much for the game of basketball as far as just bringing eyes to it, the highlights every single night. And if you look at his statistical resume, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. A completely different conversation, completely different players, but I look at Sean Kemp in a similar way to Vince Carter. I know that sounds crazy, but as far as the fame was maybe a little bit more than his actual impact. If you look at Vince Carter's career, only 2-time All-NBA, but I've made that video already as well, so we're not gonna go into Vince Carter here. But there's one more player who was actually a 7-time All-Star and is not in the Hall of Fame, and I believe should not make the Hall of Fame, and that is Joe Johnson. Now, Joe Johnson versus DeMar DeRozan, that's a good debate, because Joe Johnson is a part of another exclusive club I'm about to speak about. But before we get to that, Joe Johnson, 7-time All-Star, 1-time All-NBA. DeMar DeRozan, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA. And don't forget about Joe Johnson. We're gonna get back to Joe Johnson, but players to make 3 or more All-NBA teams and not be in the Hall of Fame. Some names we've already talked about: Amari Stoudemire, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, another intriguing case to see a Hall of Famer or not. We can have that discussion another day, but LaMarcus Aldridge and Jermaine O'Neal again, Sean Kemp again, Penny Hardaway, Gilbert Arenas, and Kevin Johnson. Now, we already spoke about Blake and Amari Stoudemire and reasons they might not be in, Sean Kemp as well, but Gilbert Arenas, off court, and his career was cut short. So he's probably not a Hall of Famer because he doesn't have the longevity of a DeMar DeRozan, as we'll get to at the end of this. Penny Hardaway, career was cut short. Kevin Johnson, deserving Hall of Famer, off the court issues, go look it up. And there's one more guy I forgot to mention, which is DeAndre Jordan. I think we all can agree, not a Hall of Famer. So of all these guys, the only ones to play a full career, not cut short by injuries, and didn't have any off the court issues are DeAndre Jordan, Jermaine O'Neal, and LaMarcus Aldridge. And to me, the only one of those guys that has an argument is LaMarcus Aldridge. And I would say DeMar DeRozan is in that LaMarcus Aldridge range. And again, we're gonna get to it at the end, why DeMar has the trump card on this conversation. Actually, we're gonna get to it right now. So I said don't forget about Joe Johnson, right? Joe Johnson is a part of the exclusive club of people to score 20,000 points but not be in the NBA Hall of Fame. That list is Anton Jameson, Tom Chambers, Joe Johnson, LaMarcus Aldridge. That's the list. And I don't know if I said this already, but I believe LaMarcus Aldridge should be in the Hall of Fame. 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, 20K points for sure. But this is where DeMar DeRozan is going to separate himself from this pack. This pack of a lot of players that I would say are better than DeMar DeRozan. Amari Stoudemire at his peak, better than DeMar. Blake at his peak, better than DeMar. But the 4 guys I just named to score 20K points and not be in the Hall of Fame, all of them are below 21K. DeMar is currently closer to 25K than 20K. I don't know if you guys are actually aware of this, but DeMar DeRozan is currently 31st all-time in the NBA scoring list. There is nobody above him that is not in the Hall of Fame. DeMar DeRozan is going to pass Charles Barkley and Allen Iverson this year in all-time points. So when we compare him to all the other guys I just named, Blake Griffin, Amari Stoudemire, Sean Kemp, Kevin Johnson, Tom Chambers, Joe Johnson, all these guys that some of them have better resumes, some of them have better peaks than DeMar. DeMar's gonna finish top 25 in scoring. That guy's a Hall of Famer, he just is. 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, top 25 all-time in scoring. How is he not in the Hall of Fame? And top 25 is being conservative. If DeMar DeRozan doesn't suffer some catastrophic injury and he averages 1,000 points over the next 4 years. And to put that in proper context, last year DeMar DeRozan scored 1,897 points. So again, we're just gonna put it at 1,000. If DeMar DeRozan scores 1,000 points over the next 4 years, a year, right? A year per year, he will likely finish a top 20 scorer of all time ahead of guys like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Tim Duncan. DeMar DeRozan. And again, that's being conservative. I would guess DeMar DeRozan averages at least 1,200 points over the next 4 years. And there's a very, very, very small chance he can catch up to someone like Carmelo. That's probably not going to happen, but it's a realistic possibility. So even if you feel like DeMar is not a Hall of Famer right now, you look at his resume, sure, that's fine. Again, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, doesn't sound great. Blake Griffin, more All-NBA teams. Amari Stoudemire, more All-NBA teams. Joe Johnson, more All-Stars. Kevin Johnson, more All-NBA teams. Guys that their peak, again, was higher than DeMar, for sure. But longevity does matter. So I'm pretty sure DeMar DeRozan is going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm pretty sure I called it the NBA Hall of Fame throughout this whole video. I know it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, but I believe DeMar is going to make it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Does he deserve it? Do you feel like DeMar DeRozan is underrated, overrated? And how crazy would it be at the end of DeMar DeRozan's career, he's like top 7, he's 17 all time on the scoring list. That's crazy, but I feel like it's a realistic possibility. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, no disrespect to the Deep 3 podcast. Shout out to those guys, but thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a comment, please like, please subscribe. I'm out. Peace.